Have you ever walked into a room and felt invisible? You speak, but no one really listens. You send a message, but the reply is cold and distant. You try to contribute, but your words don't carry weight. It feels like something has changed, but you can't quite figure out what. The truth is, you have already lost their respect, not because of one big mistake, but because of small, unnoticed habits that slowly eroded how others see you. Respect isn't stolen. It fades away when you fail to protect it. And the worst part, no one will tell you. People won't announce that they no longer take you seriously. They won't say, "I don't respect you anymore." Instead, they'll just stop engaging. They'll stop valuing your opinion. They'll stop prioritizing your presence. But here's the good news. You can reclaim that respect if you recognize and eliminate these habits now. In this video, we'll uncover 7 dangerous habits that instantly make people lose respect for you. These habits weaken your influence, damage your credibility, and silently push people away. More importantly, you'll learn how to replace them with powerful Stoic principles that command respect effortlessly. Are you ready to take back control? Let's begin. Habit 1. Losing control of your emotions. Exploding, overreacting, and acting on impulse. Respect is built on trust, and nothing shatters trust faster than emotional instability. Imagine being around someone who constantly lashes out, overreacts, or lets their emotions dictate their actions. You never know when they might snap. One moment, they're calm. The next, they're in a rage. Their words and actions are unpredictable, and over time, people start walking on eggshells around them. But the truth is, no one respects someone they have to tiptoe around. Emotional control is the foundation of strength. Without it, you're not leading your emotions, they're leading you. And if your emotions are in control, respect will always be out of reach. This is exactly what happened to Will Smith at the 2022 Oscars. One of Hollywood's most respected figures, an actor with decades of success, lost control in a single moment. A joke about his wife, a surge of anger, a split-second decision. He walked onto the stage and slapped Chris Rock in front of millions. The world watched in shock, and just like that, his reputation changed overnight. Brands pulled sponsorships, fans turned against him. Fellow actors distanced themselves. The respect he had built over years was damaged. Not because of his talent, not because of his achievements, but because of a moment of unchecked emotion. One impulsive action defined him more than decades of hard work. The reason people lose control so easily is because they're operating on autopilot. Neuroscientists call it the fight-or-flight response, a survival mechanism hardwired into our brains. Thousands of years ago, reacting instantly meant life or death. If a predator appeared, you couldn't afford to pause and think. You had to fight or run. But in the modern world, this primal response often works against us. Your brain still perceives threats everywhere: an offensive joke, a rude comment, a small inconvenience. Instead of processing the situation logically, you react instinctively. The anger flares up before you even think. And just like that, you say something you regret, act out of impulse, and damage your reputation in the process. This is why the Stoics trained themselves to master their emotions. They knew that true strength lies in restraint. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and Roman emperors, understood that external events are beyond our control, but our responses are entirely in our hands. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the key to unshakable composure. The moment you realize that nothing has the power to provoke you unless you allow it to, you become untouchable. You stop being a puppet of your emotions and start becoming a master of your reactions. But how do you train yourself to stay composed when emotions hit hard? The first step is awareness. The next time you feel anger rising, don't act immediately. Instead, take a 3-second pause. In those 3 seconds, inhale deeply, hold your breath, and exhale slowly. This simple act short-circuits your brain's impulsive reaction and gives your rational mind a chance to take over. Once you pause, ask yourself a simple question. Is this reaction necessary? Most of the time, the answer is no. If Will Smith had taken 3 seconds to breathe before reacting, he might have realized that the joke wasn't worth sacrificing his legacy over. If you can train yourself to pause before responding, you will instantly become more respected. People admire those who can remain composed under pressure, who don't let external forces dictate their emotions. This is the difference between a weak mind and a strong one. Your challenge. For the next 24 hours, every time you feel anger rising, stop and take 3 deep breaths before responding. Observe how different the situation feels when you choose to control your emotions instead of letting them control you. The world respects those who can stand in the storm and remain unmoved. Be that person. Habit 2. Gossiping and criticizing others. The fastest way to lose respect. There's a reason why the most respected people in the world avoid gossip. It's one of the easiest habits to fall into, yet one of the most damaging to your reputation. People think gossiping makes them look smarter, more in control, or socially connected. But in reality, it does the exact opposite. It makes you look weak, untrustworthy, and insecure. When you talk negatively about others, you think you're making yourself look better, but all you're really doing is exposing your own lack of integrity. Imagine working in an office where one employee constantly gossips about their colleagues. At first, people might listen, entertained by the drama, but over time, something changes. The co-workers who once laughed along now choose their words carefully around them. They stop confiding in them. They start avoiding personal conversations. Why? Because they know that if someone gossips about others, they will eventually gossip about them too. Slowly, without even realizing it, the gossip loses trust, credibility, and eventually their place in the group. They become someone people tolerate, not someone people respect. This isn't just an office problem. It's a universal rule. The moment you make a habit of talking behind people's backs, you send a clear message: I cannot be trusted. This is why gossip is so destructive. It may seem harmless, but it silently erodes relationships, credibility, and even opportunities. The world rewards those who can be relied upon, who protect rather than exploit, who uplift rather than tear down. The ones who build others up are the ones people want to follow. The ones who gossip are the ones people quietly walk away from. Psychologists have studied why people gossip, and the answer is revealing. Gossip gives people a false sense of power. Talking about others' flaws or failures creates an illusion of superiority. If someone else looks bad, then by comparison, you look better. But the reality is that gossip is a sign of insecurity, not power. Those who are confident in themselves don't need to tear others down to feel valuable. They focus on their own growth, not the failures of others. This is where Stoicism provides a powerful lesson. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught a simple but life-changing principle. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. The more you speak, especially about things that don't concern you, the more you reveal about your own character. The more you listen, the more you learn, and the more people trust you. True power comes from restraint. The ability to hold your tongue when others are indulging in gossip is a sign of strength and wisdom. So how do you break the habit of gossiping? The next time someone tries to involve you in a conversation about someone who isn't present, try this: pause and redirect. If a co-worker starts complaining about another colleague, change the subject. If a friend starts dissecting someone else's personal life, steer the conversation to something constructive. And if you feel the urge to gossip yourself, ask, would I say this if the person were here? If the answer is no, then don't say it at all. Your challenge: for the next 24 hours, commit to saying nothing negative about anyone who isn't in the room. If someone tries to gossip, either remain silent or redirect the conversation to something positive. Watch how people react. You'll notice something powerful. People will start respecting you more. They'll trust you more. And you'll begin to carry yourself differently, with a quiet confidence that needs no validation from tearing others down. Because at the end of the day, real respect is not built by what you say about others. It's built by what you refuse to say. Habit 3. Lack of discipline and breaking promises. The fastest way to lose trust. Respect is built on consistency. People trust those who do what they say they will do, those who show up when they promise, and those who follow through on their commitments. Nothing destroys respect faster than broken promises, missed deadlines, and a lack of discipline. When people realize they cannot count on you, they stop believing in you. And when belief fades, respect follows. Imagine a CEO who built a company from the ground up, inspiring employees with bold promises of growth, opportunity, and a bright future. In the early days, his energy was contagious. People believed in his vision. They trusted his leadership. But over time, cracks began to show. He started missing deadlines on key projects. He made big promises to investors, but failed to deliver results. He told employees that promotions were coming, but months passed with no action. Eventually, his words lost their power. Employees stopped trusting his announcements. Investors pulled out. The company collapsed, not because of market conditions, not because of external threats, but because its leader failed to do the one thing that matters most: honor his word. This pattern repeats everywhere. A friend who constantly cancels plans loses credibility. A manager who sets deadlines but never enforces them loses authority. A leader who talks about discipline but never practices it loses all respect. When people see that your words don't align with your actions, they stop listening. The respect they once had for you quietly fades away. Psychologists call this the consistency principle, the idea that human beings respect and trust those who align their actions with their words. When someone consistently follows through on their commitments, they become predictable in a good way. People know they can rely on them, and that reliability creates deep trust. On the other hand, when someone constantly changes plans, breaks promises, or lacks self-discipline, they become unpredictable. And unpredictability breeds distrust. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "You cannot control the future, but you can control what you do today." This is the essence of discipline. You don't need to know what will happen tomorrow, but you need to show up today. You need to take your commitments seriously. You need to keep your word, not just when it's convenient, but when it's difficult, because that's when it matters most. So how do you build unshakable discipline and become someone who commands respect? It starts with one simple principle. Small promises kept daily create unbreakable trust over time. Stop making big commitments you can't keep. Instead, focus on small, meaningful actions that prove your reliability. If you say you'll wake up early, do it. If you promise a friend you'll be there on time, show up. If you set a deadline, meet it. Every small promise you keep strengthens your reputation. Every broken promise weakens it. Your challenge: write down 3 commitments, things you will do today, no excuses. These can be as simple as finishing a task you've been avoiding, calling someone you promised to check in on, or showing up to a meeting exactly on time. Whatever they are, commit to them fully. Then, do this again tomorrow and the next day. The more you practice, the more people will respect you, not because of what you say, but because of what you prove through action. Respect isn't built in a single moment, but it can be destroyed in one. Keep your word, show up, and follow through, because in the end, you are only as strong as your discipline. Habit 4. Over-apologizing and seeking constant approval, the silent killer of respect. Not all signs of weakness are loud. Some of them whisper quietly through our words, our posture, our hesitation. One of the biggest yet least recognized respect killers is the habit of constantly apologizing and seeking approval from others. It's subtle, but over time, it erodes how people perceive you. When you over-apologize or hesitate to speak your mind, you unknowingly send a message: I do not trust myself. I need your validation to exist. And when people sense this, they start to see you as uncertain, unsure, and ultimately unworthy of respect. There was once a talented employee at a major corporation. She was intelligent, hardworking, and full of great ideas. But there was one problem. Every time she spoke in meetings, she would begin with, "Sorry, this might be a bad idea, but," or, "I don't know if this makes sense, but." Before she even presented her thoughts, she was apologizing for them. Over time, her colleagues unconsciously started discounting her input. It wasn't because her ideas were bad. It was because she signaled uncertainty every time she spoke. Even when she was right, her words lacked weight because she presented them as if they were unimportant. And when she hesitated to share her opinion without approval, others stopped asking for it. She was overlooked for promotions, not because of incompetence, but because she failed to own her presence. The reason so many people fall into this trap is because they mistake humility for submission. They think that by apologizing excessively or softening their words, they will be seen as kind, considerate, and approachable. But in reality, this behavior creates the opposite effect. It makes people seem uncertain, insecure, and easy to dismiss. Psychologists call this approval-seeking behavior, and it stems from a deep fear of rejection. When you constantly say, "Is that okay?" after expressing an opinion, when you say sorry before offering a perspective, or when you downplay your own achievements to avoid making others uncomfortable, what you are really saying is, "I am afraid of being judged. I need your permission to exist." But here's the truth. People respect those who own their words, not those who beg for validation. The more you look for external approval, the less people will give it to you. The Stoics had a powerful stance on this. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king of Rome, wrote, "Do not waste time seeking the approval of those who do not live your life." This is a fundamental truth. Your self-worth should never be at the mercy of another person's opinion. When you seek approval constantly, you give away your power. You let others dictate your value. But respect is never given to those who plead for it. It is given to those who stand firm, whether others approve or not. So, how do you break this habit? The first step is awareness. The next time you feel the urge to say sorry when it's unnecessary, stop. Instead, replace it with thank you. If you're late for a meeting, instead of saying sorry I'm late, say thank you for your patience. If you disagree with someone, don't say I'm sorry, but I don't agree. Instead say I see it differently. These small changes may seem insignificant, but they reframe the way people see you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. Your challenge: for the next 24 hours, eliminate unnecessary apologies. Every time you catch yourself saying sorry when it's not truly needed, replace it with gratitude. Watch how differently people respond. Notice how, without constantly apologizing, your presence feels stronger, more composed, more confident. Because in the end, respect is not given to those who shrink themselves to please others. It is given to those who own their words, their actions, and their worth. Habit 5. Avoiding conflict, the silent killer of respect. Some people believe that avoiding conflict makes them more likable, that staying silent and keeping the peace will earn them respect. But the truth is, avoiding confrontation doesn't make you respected. It makes you invisible. When you refuse to face difficult conversations, when you hesitate to address problems, and when you shrink away from moments that require courage, people stop taking you seriously. Respect isn't given to those who remain passive. It is given to those who stand their ground when it matters. There was once a talented employee in a large corporation. He was intelligent, hardworking, and reliable. But whenever a difficult conversation arose, whether it was about a project delay, a disagreement with a colleague, or a mistake from upper management, he stayed silent. He thought that avoiding conflict would protect him, that staying out of heated discussions would make him appear professional and agreeable. But his silence came at a cost. Over time, his manager noticed that while he was competent, he lacked leadership. He never pushed back when something was unfair. He never spoke up when a decision was wrong, and he never challenged ideas, even when he had better ones. When a promotion opportunity came, it was given to someone else, not because they were smarter, but because they had the courage to speak up, defend their ideas, and handle tough conversations. The passive employee watched as his career stagnated, not because he wasn't good enough, but because he was too afraid to face conflict. The fear of confrontation is deeply wired into the human brain. From an evolutionary perspective, humans are social creatures. Being part of a group meant survival, and conflict within a group could mean exclusion. That's why so many people instinctively avoid confrontation. They fear rejection, disapproval, or making enemies. But the reality of life is this: if you never confront issues, they don't go away. They grow. Problems don't disappear because you ignore them. They worsen. People don't respect those who avoid conflict. They respect those who handle it with intelligence and composure. This is where Stoicism offers a powerful lesson. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught, "There is nothing to fear but fear itself." Fear is often an illusion, a self-created prison that keeps you from acting. The moment you break through it, you realize that most of the things you were afraid of were never as bad as they seemed. The conversation you were dreading, it ends up being productive. The confrontation you avoided, it clears the air and earns you more respect. The difficult decision you postponed, once made, it brings clarity and direction. So how do you overcome the fear of conflict? The first step is recognizing that avoiding confrontation costs you more than facing it. Every time you hold back from speaking your mind, you lose a little respect from others and from yourself. The second step is preparing for difficult conversations. Instead of letting fear paralyze you, approach conflicts like a Stoic, calmly, rationally, and with the intention to solve problems, not escalate them. Your challenge: identify one difficult conversation you've been avoiding, a disagreement with a coworker, an unresolved issue with a friend, a necessary but uncomfortable discussion with a loved one. Within the next 24 hours, face it head-on. Approach it not with fear, but with the mindset that handling conflict maturely earns you more respect, not less. Because in the end, those who avoid confrontation don't escape it. They just surrender control to those who are willing to face it. And no one respects those who surrender their own power. Habit 6. Complaining and blaming circumstances, the fastest way to lose power and respect. Nothing repels respect faster than a person who constantly complains, blames others, and sees themselves as a victim of circumstances. While complaining might feel like a way to vent frustrations, it does nothing to solve problems. Worse, it signals to the world that you are powerless, that life happens to you, rather than you taking responsibility for your own actions. Respect is not given to those who focus on what's wrong. It is given to those who take control and find solutions. There was once a promising young athlete with immense talent. From a young age, he was considered a rising star in his sport. He had the natural ability, the speed, the strength, everything needed to succeed. But there was one problem: he had a habit of blaming everything but himself for his failures. If he lost a race, it was because the referee was biased. If he missed a shot, it was because the equipment wasn't good enough. If his performance was poor, it was because of bad weather, bad teammates, or bad luck. Never once did he take responsibility for his own shortcomings. At first, people sympathized, but over time, his excuses grew tiresome. Coaches stopped pushing him because they knew he would blame them if he failed. Sponsors lost interest because they saw he lacked accountability. Fellow athletes stopped respecting him because they knew he never owned his losses. Eventually, he faded from the competitive scene, not because he lacked talent, but because he refused to take responsibility for his own growth. His career ended, not because of external factors, but because he never looked in the mirror and asked, "What can I do better?" The reason people love to complain and blame others is simple. It protects the ego. When something goes wrong, blaming circumstances allows you to avoid discomfort. If it's someone else's fault, you don't have to change. If it's the system's fault, you don't have to improve. Complaining provides temporary relief. It shifts responsibility away from you, but in the long run, it destroys your power. It keeps you stuck in the same problems because instead of fixing them, you're busy pointing fingers. The Stoics saw this mindset as one of the greatest obstacles to self-mastery. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, warned against wasting time blaming the world for your problems. He said, "Do not waste time arguing about what should have been. Instead, focus on what you can do." In other words, life is unpredictable. Some things will be unfair, some things will go wrong, but what matters is not the external event, it's your response. You can choose to complain and remain stagnant, or you can take responsibility and move forward. So how do you break the habit of complaining and blaming others? The first step is awareness. Every time you catch yourself about to complain about something, traffic, work, people, pause. Ask yourself, can I change this situation? If the answer is yes, take action. If the answer is no, let it go. Wasting time complaining about things outside of your control only drains your energy and makes you look weak. The second step is to replace complaints with solutions. If you don't like your job, instead of complaining, ask yourself what steps you can take to improve or change your situation. If you don't like how someone treats you, instead of blaming them, set boundaries and take responsibility for how you react. Your challenge: for the next 24 hours, eliminate complaints from your speech. Every time you feel the urge to complain, stop and reframe your thinking. Ask yourself, what can I do to change this? Notice how your mindset shifts. Notice how people begin to respect you more, not because your circumstances have changed, but because you have. Because in the end, respect is given to those who take control of their lives, not to those who waste energy blaming everything but themselves. Habit 7. Being late and disorganized, a silent killer of respect. Punctuality is a small habit with massive consequences. People who are consistently late may not realize it, but they are silently eroding the respect others have for them. Being late signals a lack of discipline, poor time management, and perhaps most damaging of all, disrespect for other people's time. No one admires someone who cannot manage themselves. Respect is given to those who are reliable, who show up when they say they will, and who take responsibility for their commitments. There was once an ambitious young employee working at a fast-growing company. He was talented, intelligent, and full of ideas. But there was one problem. He was always late. He arrived late to meetings, showed up late to important deadlines, and never seemed to manage his schedule well. At first, his colleagues tolerated it. They assumed he was just adjusting, that he would improve. But as time passed, the frustration grew. One day, his boss, an experienced CEO, had enough. The employee was scheduled for a major presentation, one that could land the company a huge client. Everyone was ready. The client was waiting. The CEO sat at the head of the table checking his watch, but the employee, he was nowhere to be found. 10 minutes passed, then 15. By the time he arrived, flustered, sweating, and full of excuses, it was too late. The meeting had been cancelled. The CEO looked at him, shook his head, and said, "In business, reliability is everything. If I cannot trust you to show up on time, how can I trust you with anything else?" The employee was fired that same week. The problem wasn't just being late. It was what his lateness represented. It showed a lack of self-discipline. It showed he couldn't be counted on. And in the professional world, and in life, trust is built on consistency. People often underestimate how much lateness damages their reputation. Psychologists have found that being consistently late creates an unconscious signal. This person does not take their commitments seriously. When you are late, you force others to adjust their schedules for you. You waste their time, and in doing so, you slowly lose their respect. Over time, people start planning around your failure. They stop trusting your deadlines. They expect you to be unreliable. And once that expectation is set, it is incredibly difficult to change. The Stoics had a powerful perspective on time. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "Your time is your life. Do not waste it. Time is the one resource you can never get back. Every moment wasted is a moment lost forever. The person who does not value their own time will never value the time of others. And if you do not value time, you will never be respected." So, how do you fix this? The first step is to realize that being on time is a sign of respect, not just for others, but for yourself. The second step is to prepare better. Most people who are late don't plan to be late. They just underestimate how long things take. They hit snooze one too many times. They think a commute will take 10 minutes when it really takes 20. They assume they can complete a task in half the time it actually requires. The solution is simple. Start earlier, plan better, and take control of your schedule. Your challenge for the next 7 days: commit to being on time for everything. Set alarms earlier, plan your day the night before, and give yourself buffer time for every task. Track how many times you succeed, and notice how differently people treat you when you show up exactly when you said you would. Because in the end, people who respect time earn respect in return. Show up on time, and the world will take you seriously. You now see how small habits can silently destroy the respect others have for you. Losing control of your emotions, gossiping, breaking promises, seeking constant approval, avoiding conflict, complaining, and being late. Each of these behaviors may seem minor in isolation, but together they create a pattern that weakens your reputation and credibility. The good news is that respect is not something you are born with. It is something you build, habit by habit, action by action. Now that you are aware of these toxic behaviors, the question is, will you take control and change, or will you continue to let these habits dictate how others see you? Breaking bad habits isn't just about awareness, it's about action. Now that you've identified the 7 habits that destroy respect, the next step is to actively remove them from your life. But how do you do that? Awareness alone won't create change. You need a structured approach, a practical system to rewire your behaviors and replace them with powerful, respect-commanding habits. That's why, in an upcoming video on Stoic wisdom, we're going beyond theory and diving into a step-by-step practice guide to eliminate these habits once and for all. This won't be just another lecture. It will be a 7-day challenge designed to help you break free from these toxic behaviors and rebuild the discipline, control, and confidence that demand respect. Each day, you'll take on one targeted Stoic exercise, forcing you to step outside your comfort zone and start making real changes. If you're serious about transforming the way people see you, and more importantly, the way you see yourself, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Respect isn't built in a day, but the right actions taken consistently will change your life. Are you ready to do the work? Stay tuned. Respect is not demanded. It is not given freely. It is earned through discipline, self-awareness, and the choices you make every single day. The Stoics understood that the way you carry yourself, the habits you cultivate, and the way you respond to challenges shape how the world sees you. You now know the 7 habits that silently destroy respect. The real question is, what will you do about it? Every action you take either strengthens or weakens your reputation. If you let emotions control you, if you gossip, break promises, seek approval, avoid confrontation, complain, or show up late, you are telling the world that you are not in control of yourself. But if you master your reactions, hold yourself accountable, and operate with discipline, you naturally command respect without ever having to ask for it. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Now it's your turn. Which of these 7 habits have you struggled with the most? What changes will you commit to making? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your story. If this video challenged you, helped you, or made you see things differently, hit the like button so more people can discover these ideas. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful Stoic insights, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And before you go, I'll leave you with one question. If people only judged you based on your daily habits, would they respect you? Think about it. The answer might change everything.